wants to be king!
Today I want to talk about something that has captivated the hearts and minds of most people in America, and that's the tragic demise of Tyre Nichols. I've seen several videos of people breaking this down, ranging from street people to law enforcement, and I've yet to find anyone who has looked at this and been on the side of these gangsters that were dressed in police uniforms. The one narrative that I've heard a couple of people talk about was the fact that this kid resisted arrest, and had he just laid on his belly and complied, that things would have been better. And generally, I would agree with that sentiment. But having been involved in multiple situations on a personal level, from the jackassery of my past and my youth, there was a different element to what we witnessed here. This was drastically different than the pieces of propaganda that we've been fed the past few years, like Floyd, Michael Brown, these stories that are slanted away to make these people look innocent, when in truth what these males stood for was more of a culture that's sick. I don't see what Nichols did as resisting. I don't see that at all. And while on the surface it would seem that that's what he was doing, when you understand the way procedures go, there's a certain standard operational procedure that law enforcement officers are supposed to adhere to. There was absolutely nothing about that traffic stop that was protocol. There's nothing in American law that officers are supposed to act like that. So anyone who thinks that young man should have just laid down and put his hands behind their back, you will be one of the fools who gets on the bus, gets on the train, because they're gonna look out for you and take you to a secure location. Those guys ran up on that boy with the intention of doing bodily harm to him. It didn't escalate because he resisted. They wanted to do damage to him on a personal level. That wasn't a traffic stop. That was a hit. That was an operation. That was an op. And those weren't police officers. Those were thugs. Those were gangsters dressed up like cops. You know, there have been several takes on this, and one of them that is on its face sounds ridiculous is the idea that this was a racially motivated thing that was carried out by these 5 black officers. For some kind of way, this is more proof of this imagined supremacy, superiority. And while that argument is beyond stupid, the people who are chanting that have a point. They do have a point. They're not all the way wrong. When I watched that video, outside the obvious shock of these men who are supposed to have taken an oath to protect and serve, acting just like the community that they're supposed to be protecting from thugs, aside from the obvious, what I saw was a deeper entrenched problem in America, particularly in the black culture. I've spoken about this in the past, and when all of this BLM shit started to jump off, when everybody was in shock because of the narrative that they were spinning about Floyd, I saw an opportunity for a community that has been subjugated in the past, that has been touched by suffering in a way that, in my belief system, is a lot self-induced, but there was a real opportunity to make some changes in our culture. And instead of taking that opportunity and trying to make real changes, the dummies allowed their strings to be pulled, and they went and looted and burned up and peacefully protest millions, if not billions of dollars in damage in people's lives. And they were allowed to do so. And the narrative, it fit because Chauvin was a certain color and Floyd was a certain color. So all the victims, all the freed plantation, survivors, all of these people they had an enemy to look at, and there was no way to stop it. Now the enemy is the same color as the plaintiff, and these race baiters want to some kind of way make this about the white man. Because if you look at what's wrong with the black community, if you look at what has happened since the slaves were freed, there's been a self-fulfilling prophecy that has, if the history is true, was propagated by Willie Lynch. And even if that letter was written later, the strategy, the blueprint to how to turn the slaves against one another, how to create the infighting, it was brilliant. And what has happened is there is a level of self-hatred that is so deeply ingrained in the black community. And then you add on the fact that they ran the fathers out in the 60s and the 70s, the influx of single mothers, the culture. Look at Memphis culture, look at Memphis rap culture. Look at these kids' Instagram. This whole culture is a culture of murder. It's a culture of self-hatred. It's a culture of seeing someone who looks just like you, and because they live 2 streets over and have a different colored tennis shoe strings than you have, you got to give them smoke. They brag about how quick they'll body someone. This is the culture. When you look at what's going on in the culture, when you look at what's going on in the streets, when you look at how little the youth, the black youth, value life, you look at what they admire. You look at this culture, and you have to look at what Jason Whitlock said and really analyze that. But that's a harsh truth. That's an ugly truth. And when you look at that community and you look at these communities where the murder rate is going through the roof, look who's in control of the police force. Look who the affirmative action hire is with the thought of equity and inclusion, affirmative action. People's lives are being lost. And there's nothing that's being done about it. Right now, I think that everybody that's seen this horrible crime that was committed to this young man agrees that something needs to be done. Something needs to be done in every faction that has something to do with what happened. The black family has got to find a way to get a cohesiveness back to it. The difference between yesterday and today, the difference between when I was a young man and where these young men are now, is we had men guiding us. These young men don't have men guiding them. They're listening to rappers, they're listening to entertainers, they're listening to dummies in the street, and they're watching their mother and learning how to handle conflict like a female. They have no value in life. They have no value in anything that means anything. So if the community wants to fix things, they have to stop blaming white folks and realize that this is an in-house problem. These 5 crooks and criminals that were on this force who did this to this man, this doesn't represent the majority of police officers. But there's a problem in the police force, this brotherhood, which makes them a gang. And the fact that there's very few officers and very few units that are like the Scorpion unit, where these people are acting fools like they did in the Rampart days in LA, even though those are maybe 1-off, 2-off, even though those things aren't prevalent in police forces, the 1s and 2s who do this stuff, they aren't outed. They're protected by their superior officers because they don't want to bring a bad light upon the force. That's a problem. An innocent cop, a good cop that stands by and protects the force's reputation, because he doesn't want to out a bad cop. This is why we have these units that sprout up and do these things. Instead of affirmative action hires, instead of hiring people just because you need to fill slots, we need to go back to the merit-based system. We need to have honor and integrity, a morality base, where these people that take this oath actually keep the oath. And as a public, we've got to stop standing by and watching these things go by, thinking that protesting is the way that it gets done. Holding up signs, yelling, breaking windows, this isn't how you get things done. You want to make real change, you got to start at the grassroots level. Clean up your house, clean up your act. Before you start looking at the world trying to fix the problems in your own home. Fix the problems in your own reflection that you see in the mirror. Right now we're at a pivotal point. The masters are giving us so many things to occupy ourselves with while they're marching us into World War III. This is an easy fix. But in order to fix this, the people involved need to stop looking for someone to blame, look in the mirror, and fix the faults that you find there. God bless Tyre Nichols' family. May we learn from this instead of continue to repeat the cycle over and over again. Out.